Today we're going to build a hurdle. Not a running hurdle, a hurdle that goes in the front of the back of the tray. People in today's Australian world have changed what they call it, because I don't think most people know anymore. Everyone's trying to get the truck moving and vintage truck moving. The hurdle is the bit that drops in here or up the front. It sits up each side, it's called gates. You might call it a headboard in the UK or something else up the front, but it's called a hurdle in Australia, and that's what we call them. What we used to call them. But in today's modern world, everything's changing. I'm getting left behind and I don't even care. So we'll bend some pipe up and make a hurdle and see how we go. Nothing's that hard. Most people don't like working with pipe because they don't know how. I actually don't mind it. Pipe's stronger than the box section. So when I break something on the farm, it just tears it. If it's box section, it tears the wall out of it. If it's pipe, it just bends it. So anyway, this will be 1.25 inch pipe. We measure water pipe in Australia. It's all measured on the inside diameter, in between the walls. Electrical conduit measured on the outside, so is hydraulic pipe. So generally between all those you can find pipes that are neat fit inside each other. And that's really about all I have to say. First thing you need to do is establish what size pockets you got. That's what this square bit's called. And this is not very heavy duty. Normally they're actually welded inside the tray here, so you'd actually have to break the combing off to tear the pocket. This has just been welded on the back, but that's what it's here, so we'll do. So we establish the size of the pocket, 1.25 inch ID in between the two flange walls, which will mean the OD is about 1.5 inches. Well, it's actually 1 5/8 inches. What you got to do is, before you can go any further, how high does it need to be? So that's about 54.5 inches. Once you've done those two things, you can get your material. For me, second-hand bit of pipe, because, well, I'm a tight ass. Not really, I just use what I've got because that was the way I was brought up. If you measure out 55 inches, now when you bend pipe it actually grows in length, so we've got to take off about 1.25 inches. And it's about 54.5, so we'll take it off about 1.25 inches, which will bring us back about here somewhere. And then we bend it. By doing this now, we can sit a bit of wood at one end and measure down to the bottom. And we can then see how much it's growing by. So if I made that, I think I made it 54.5. Let's say about 55 and 7/8, 56 inches. So it's growing about 1.5 inches. I think I set it at 54.5. A good ad here for the Boss Garage, what they call it, Tape Boss, because I'd remember. There you go. So when you're bending, and it's quality pipe, like this, isn't, you just go real gentle. Give it plenty of time to bend, otherwise you keep on cracking it. And even going gentle, I crack it. So now we get the square, and we check. Let's see where we're going. So We've obviously got more to go. It's much easier to bend a little bit too less than a whole lot too much. Let me give you the business. Okay, so if you can have a look, well, you can see, but I've gone past 90 degrees. So when we let it off, it'll spring back. What are we at now? We've still got further to go. We've gone not quite far enough. I'm better off to do this a few times and try to get it real close. Let's try that. If you've got to jack it back up until it's all flexed, I guess would be the right term, then you're letting go again. If you're going to measure pipe, the easiest way to measure it when you put a bend in it, you stick a block of wood up, I reckon, and you can measure out, getting it fairly accurate. Now, if you're not sure on how much it grows when you're going to bend it, when you do your first bend, measure out a little bit longer, and once you've bent, then measure. So you put 2 marks on it. You put 1 mark before it's going to be bent, and then you put another mark, say, where you reckon it'll bend. And then you can measure and see actually how much it's grown. And you can place your bend sort of like within 1/8 of an inch. That's about my useless information. Okay, so this is where it's got to drop into the truck. So I measure the amount outside of the pocket. Flipping huckleberry seeds. Outside of the other pocket, that's 94 1/4 inches, 94 1/4, 94 3/8 really. So what I do is, you don't worry about the clearance down the bottom just yet between the 2 posts. That's sort of irrelevant. I'll explain that in a minute. Even though they're, you would think, are the most important. Got to get the top measurement right. We'll adjust that in a moment. So, I put my trusty bit of, normally I wouldn't do this, but we haven't got any good quality steel in the steel rack. Take my plugger off. So, join here, join there. Make sure this measurement between the 2, between that end and that end is right. The bottom doesn't matter. It's irrelevant. If the top's right and they're roughly right angles, she'll be right, and even if they're not really, if they're not real close. I always lay it up against the straight edge to start with, to try to get it straight. You can look down along it to get a good view in a straight line. Make sure you're sort of straight before you get all excited. We'll just check and make sure it's came at the right height. It's probably up around here, about 51 1/2 inches to the tray. Well, I suppose it's a half inch there. I had excuses for everything. No, 51.5. But that's okay. It's all good. We've got to join that pipe onto, how we do it, onto here. And this is why most people, I believe, don't like working with pipe, because they don't know how to join it on neatly, because you get these gaps on either side. Some people squash the pipe so that it makes it flat and it's easy to join. Problem is, it puts a high load pressure on this bit of pipe up here that it welds onto, and it will tear out easily. So what you really need to do is cut out a radius on each side of this pipe so that when it welds up, it matches in neatly to that radius. I think that's why everyone uses box section, because they just don't know how to work with pipe. Luckily for me, get the pipe out, I have a secret weapon. And it's not quite as exciting as it may sound. Here is the special tool. Mine just gets G-clamp, I think. They're actually meant to go on a stand, and you bolt them probably 12 inches off the ground. Called a pipe notcher. That cuts a notch in the pipe. You put your different sizes in, 3/4, 1 inch, 1.25 in here, an 1.5 inch. And you can get a 2-inch notch as well. And you can cut a notch in a pipe. Check out the action on it. Very simple. Chomp. Slide him up. And you can put smaller dies in. So if you're going to notch this to go on like a 1-inch pipe, you can then you turn it over, and you've got to line this notch up on top with the one underneath. Check this out. Dovetailed. Now, that's so much easier than all this other hoopla, grinding and squashing and fun-arkling around. Get yourself a pipe notcher. I think it was only like $150 when I bought it 15 years ago, so probably $200 today. If anyone in Australia watches this, Blackwood sell them. I think Blackwood's make them. Pipe's almost out of fashion, and I think it's like people tying loads on trucks with ropes. It's almost out of fashion. It's not because of the laws that people crap on about. I think it's people just don't know how to anymore. They've got no idea. Pipe's the same. People got no idea how to work with pipe. And consequently, it's going out of fashion. A bit like me and my shirt. And hey. So I've got the 2 uprights in the hurdle. Got the this bit here in, notched out. The first one for the bottom. Now, the reason it doesn't matter, I shim these on each side here in the pocket to try to get the post in the pocket in the middle when we're done. Now we'll start from the middle and work our way out on the bottom too. Now we've got to weld this in the truck. So, when you weld it in the truck, there's a few things you should do. Whenever you weld anything with an alternator, you should always disconnect the alternator. Because the collapsing magnetic field of the welder works like a coil on a petrol engine and generates a high voltage when you take the... Hang on. When you're going to do some welding on anything with an alternator, truck, car, anything like that, you should always disconnect the battery in the alternator. The reason you disconnect the alternator doesn't matter on something old with the generator because it didn't have any electronics in it. An alternator has a solid state rectifier. The alternators on your car and your truck or tractor or whatever it may be, they're 3-phase. And they rectify the 3-phase to DC using 6 diodes, which is a 3-phase rectifier. And every time you take the electrode off, or I suppose you let go of the trigger on the MIG welder, it actually sends a big spike. Like the coil on your car, when the point's open, it sends a spike down, which gives you the spark on the spark plug. It does exactly the same. Every time you take the electrode off on your welder, every time you lift the electrode off, it sends a big spike down the line. So you take those off because they're solid state. You disconnect the alternator and the battery, because the alternator's solid state, and those rectifiers, those 6 diodes, can blow with that big spike of voltage going down the line. You can also damage your battery, allegedly. I've never known it to happen, but you can apparently damage the battery if you're welding. You can, the same thing, I guess, sending the spike back down into the battery. So yes, that's my useless information for today. Okay, it's all welded up. I've got most of the shims out. One of them was a bit stuck and broke off. So it should hopefully just lift out. And just to show it's not a complete fluke, I put it back in again. No, what have you done, Paul? How good's that? Fits. So I put 2, probably 4, maybe 3 more in. 1, 2, 3, yeah, 3 more. Bits going crossways and we'll be done. Got all the rails notched and cut and sitting in. Just need to weld him up. Good to go. Okay, one hurdle, it's all done, all made nice and shiny. Just got to give it a coat of paint, ground off, well, most of the rust, I guess. Give it a coat of paint and should be good to go. All in primer now.